I was suffered with chronic pain for 40 years, and it really sourced in unresolved childhood trauma, which nobody really looked at. But also, I had a back injury. Well, it didn't work out till later. I had a back injury, spinal injury, and it created an instability in my spine. I needed a bunch of surgery to try and stabilize that. So that we were able to stabilize it, but the pain was just a ton of pain, and the doctors really didn't know how to heal that. They just assumed I wouldn't heal, which is kind of scary when you sit in front of a doctor and they go, yeah, you're not going to heal from this.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, another great author from the very center of the United States of America. This is great. I'm excited to have Elizabeth on the podcast, talk about her journey. She's got some great things to share with us, some amazing people that also inspire her as well, which we'll talk about as we chat today. And if you're looking around results around chronic pain and how to make things better in your life, Elizabeth's here to share her story and her writings as well. Elizabeth, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's my pleasure. I'm so grateful for your platform and to be a guest on it.
Exciting, so exciting. So I said you're the center of the United States.
Yes.
So tell me exactly, where is the geographic center of the United States?
It's in Lawrence, Kansas.
There you go.
Which is in eastern Kansas. We're about 50 miles west of Kansas City, Missouri. There's a Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri, and the Missouri River is what separates the two. We're 50 miles west of that the center of that. And that's where the center of the United States is, right down the road from where I live. The geographic center. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Yeah.
So do you get like a special prize for being in the very center of the United States? Is there some benefit to you?
Well, I have listeners can find out. That would be something they could go get on a scavenger hunt and see if they could find that.
There you go. I love it. That's amazing. So, have you been there your whole life? Is that like home base for you?
No, I came here in 1979 with my then husband, who was pursuing a PhD in honeybee foraging behavior. It was biology. Plant science is my background. And so a lot of ecology with he was an entomologist, so he studied the insects, I studied the plants, and so it was a nice ecosystem studies of both and systems and stuff like that. So that's my background. I grew up on the East Coast in Delaware, and then we came out here to study at the University of Kansas, and it's a beautiful community.
Yeah.
I just never left because it's a beautiful community. We were in Canada for about 8 years. He did a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of New Brunswick for about 8 years, and then we came back.
Nice.
So
you have Canada as well, which is great because that's where I am. That's nice to hear that in your background again. We were just talking a little weather before we jumped on, and right now Eastern Canada is not having a good time with snow, but you and I are having a little warm spell, so it's great to enjoy a little bit of spring in February. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, good stuff. So your journey as an author, I like to go back to a point in time when being an author was maybe a dream or an idea or suggestion, but you haven't written anything yet. Take us back to those days, and what kind of was the beginning point for you to say, you know what, I want to share something with the world. I want to write. I want to become an author. What was it that kind of sparked you to go, this is my path and this is where I want to pursue?
Sure. Yeah. Great question. I was suffered with chronic pain for 40 years, and it really sourced in unresolved childhood trauma, which nobody really looked at. But also, I had a back injury. Well, it didn't work out till later. I had a back injury, spinal injury, and it created an instability in my spine. I needed a bunch of surgery to try and stabilize that. So we were able to stabilize it, but the pain was just a ton of pain, and the doctors really didn't know how to they didn't know how to heal that. They just assumed I wouldn't heal, which is kind of scary when you sit in front of a doctor and they go, yeah, you're not going to heal from this.
Oh,
Now, as I said, I had the science background, and I knew that within the science realm, and Western medicine's within the science realm, we're operating on models. We're operating on, you know, within a window of what we know about certain things. And I thank God I had the training as a research scientist, because when they told me that, the doctors told me, you know, you're not going to get better. You're going to be in pain for the rest of your life 24/7. I I didn't like to hear that, and I was very upset by that. But I also realized that there was a possibility that they were making an error, that their model was, they were telling me more about the limitation of their model than they were telling me about the body's ability to heal. So I kind of took my stand there. And I looked outside of the Western model for modalities that help me, you know, like acupuncture and massage and yoga and meditation and things like that, which were helpful. They didn't solve the problem though, but I did find these incremental. I found incremental improvements until I finally found a doctor that understood the nature of chronic pain. And just about 2 or 3 years before I found this doctor, I started writing a book of, like, this is what it's like to be in chronic pain. This is what we have to do to try and heal. This is what it's like to be a chronic pain sufferer. And I sat between hospital stays and doctors' offices and, you know, physical rehab centers, and because of so much surgery that I had. I sat with an awful lot of chronic pain sufferers. So I got to know the things they had in common. And it concerned me because most of them didn't know how to sit in front of their doctor and have a conversation. And I felt like I was able to do that with my doctors, within the scope of their practice. And so they're intimidated by the doctors, and also they had a mindset that they weren't going to get better. And I just that was what set the seed of the book in me. I just like, this is not healthy. As patients, we can't sit in that mindset. So so I started that book, and I started the writing of that, and then I went into Dr. Peter Prescott's pain management program, who wrote this book, Conquer Chronic Pain: An Innovative Mind-Body Approach. Okay. He passed away in 2016, but he left us this beautiful book. My book is a follow-up to that, The Way Through Chronic Pain: Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. His is kind of the sciencey, researchery. It's very simple and plain, easy to read, but it's kind of like that. This is more like the tools that I used, and he has tools in there too at the end, but it's more about the landscape of chronic pain, and then also the voice of a chronic pain sufferer, so that you really know what's happening on the inside, in like a different way than Dr. Peter did. Mm-hmm. So when I got out of his treatment program, out of his pain management program, I came home and I looked at the work that I had done on the book, and I threw it all out, and I started from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
It was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. I just So that's like a backstory on the book. I just tried a different approach, and I had a different perspective, and but it was still the same thing. I wanted to help empower people that were convinced that they were going to be in chronic pain for the rest of their life, and to show them that it was possible to heal from it. Yeah. And it wasn't like, I went into Dr. Peter Prescott's pain management program with 40 years of chronic pain, and I walked out 52 days later with no pain.
Wow.
which is amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
He never even promised me that. He just said I could help you reset your stress response, and I could help you up the medications. They had me on, the doctors had me on a lot of medications. So it wasn't like I was so special. He had a 94% success rate in that program. And when I was there were 20 other patients like me. They didn't have quite the length of time but they all had a drug background and chronic pain. A lot of us were on this combination of opiates and a benzodiazepine, which is like a painkiller and an anti-anxiety medicine, which is this. It's just a combination that a lot of doctors had patients on, and it doesn't help heal. It kind of puts us in a limbo.
Yeah.
Kind of. Actually, I remember a reporter asked me, because I was interviewed for an article when Purdue Pharma that story broke. The LA Times broke that, and I was interviewed for that story back in the day, and I didn't know anything about what I had taken OxyContin, but I didn't know anything about at that point, I didn't know what they'd been up to. I just didn't know anything about that. So the investigative reporter is asking me all these questions about my experience. And she said, and one of the things I said to her was, you want a description of hell? I can give it to you.
Really? And
that was my description of that 12-hour pill. OxyContin was a 12-hour pill because it's written that you take it and then you take it every 12 hours. And so what happened to me was I would take it, and about 20 minutes later, I would feel a shift in my pain level where it would kind of drop. And then a half an hour later, it would go back up, or it would maybe get worse. So I started watching the clock, watch. That's a perfect setup for addiction right there.
Yeah.
You're just waiting, chasing the next relief.
Yeah.
Right. So that was, and they ended up using that as the headline, which was the title of the article. If you want a description of hell, I can give it to you.
That was you. Wow.
That was me. Yeah. So this medication combination is it doesn't help heal. It doesn't help heal chronic pain. An opiate doesn't help you heal. It helps you calm down when you've had acute trauma. Like if you've been in some kind of accident, or maybe you've got a kidney stone, which is pretty epically painful. Yeah. And you can't rest, and your nervous system just in a constant of tension. It's helpful for that. It'll help break that cycle. But for a chronic pain sufferer, and a chronic pain is any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more.
Good definition. I like that. Thank you.
Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, it's all the same to the brain. It sends the same signal. It hurts.
Yeah.
Right? So in chronic pain, that doesn't help. In chronic pain, it doesn't help unwind that stress response, getting stuck on the on position.
Yeah.
And it's not acute, it's chronic. So it's 15, it's a different kind of a cycle. And so an opiate depresses your ability to breathe. We need oxygen to live, right? We need to cells. It also represses our it's a respiration, so our inhale and our exhale, so we can't release toxins or take oxygen in. It freezes the gut, so we can't paralyzes the gut, so we can't digest our food, and it dehydrates us, so we don't have enough water on board. Well, how is the body supposed to heal in those conditions?
Yeah.
So this is why I'm saying it's a description of hell.
Wow. And I guess the other part too would be the mental struggles as you kind of go through this, when people are not giving you answers, doctors are sitting there saying, we don't know what's wrong. And you're like, but I'm hurting. Like that kind of mental spiral down. Like I think that's one thing that I think a lot of people with chronic illness really have to wrestle with is, I have the physical aspects of what I'm feeling, but then I'm also mentally, I don't see any sign of hope. I don't see an answer.
Well,
And I'm getting that kind of support, right?
that was the problem with their prognosis, that I wouldn't get better, is that
Yeah.
there was no hope there. And that was an error on their part, because they're not fortune tellers. And so they could have said the odds are. They didn't say that. They said you won't, right? So
Yeah.
there's no window for hope, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing was they they forgot kind of basic science, which is science is probabilities. It's not facts. It's not yes or this or that. It's maybe this and maybe that. It's kind of like that. And they didn't. So that I felt like they made an error. But again, I had this science background, and so I knew that they've forgotten the model they're working in, right? So the other thing was I had a spiritual perspective. So again, science can only comment on what it can observe, measure, and describe. But where do we live? We live in the all that is. We live in all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not only the part that science can observe, measure, and describe. So I knew that I was going to have to get outside of this model in order to find my healing. And Dr. Peter understood. He had Western and Eastern training, and he understood the whole person. He looked at me and he said, I don't need to look at your x-rays or your records. I just want to know who you are. And I was like, who are you and where have you been all my life?
Yeah.
You actually care about what's happening inside of me? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. So the thing about it's not that the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They thought they knew what was wrong with me, that my back wasn't healing and that it wouldn't get better. But they didn't ask the question, why isn't Elizabeth healing? They just assumed I wouldn't. So that's different than I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
That's a different. Now, I did hear, I do hear that people with chronic illness hear that. I hear that. And I also, the other thing I got from doctors was it's all in your head, which was like, that's where the body processes pain. So of course it's, well, I wouldn't let them get away with telling me it was a mental case, because that wasn't going to wash with me. But patients that didn't have my kind of background would get shamed by that.
Yeah. You're the expert. So
I'm not dissing all doctors. I'm dissing doctors that say stuff like that, because I ran into a lot of patients that said that had that experience, and that's where we shrink into ourselves and think, well, what now? What I've got nothing. I just knew I needed to find a different way.
Yeah. And so when you held up your book, I noticed little tabs and inserts poking out of the top of the book, highlighting very key points. There they are. So tell me, like, for yourself as an author, it's one thing to write a book, put out in the world and hope it helps somebody, but I'm feeling like your book helps you as much as it helps your audience, right? It's for you as well. It's kind of a personal project that helps you grow and helps you. Right?
Yes, it was interesting sitting down to write this book, because I had to use all the tools in the book in order to write the book.
Right. Yeah. It's like a manual then for yourself.
It was like that. I had the voice like, whoa, Elizabeth, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. And so I would have to sit and, do the work that chronic pain people do to get beyond that, right? So one of the things that happens with chronic pain is, and anybody that's had it will understand it, we get brain fog, we get confusion, we can't remember what we just did, that kind of thing. And we get a pronounced negative mind. And then we normally have a little bit of a negative bias anyway. That's kind of, we kind of go to the worst possible scenario anyway, just to kind of keep ourselves safe in the world. That's kind of programmed into us at a reptilian level.
Yeah.
But in chronic pain, it gets really accentuated. So, um, so this is bad. The world is bad. I'm bad. So our self-esteem takes a real hit. So anybody who's had chronic pain listening to this and hearing me say, yeah, I had to get over my self-esteem issue to write the book, will completely understand that.
Yeah.
I had to use the tools in the book that I write about in order to get myself clear and centered and grounded into the book. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the process of writing the book, you said you kind of had a framework already in place and you set that aside, started over again. What was the framework from your rewrite and your recollection of your thoughts to the finished product? How long did that take to create the book?
I'm trying to think. I published it in 2019.
Okay.
And I started in 5 years.
5 years? Wow. Okay.
5 years it took.
That's a journey just to write then.
Yeah, well, it was funny. It took me 3 years to actually lay out the framework and say everything I wanted to say. And then I had found an editor. I found a structural editor. And for those people that don't know, the structural editor takes your material and says, oh, put this here and take this from here and put it over there. And we don't even want that. And, kind of put some structure into where it's needed. And then I also had to hire a line editor when that was who does all the, commas and misplaced, all the little grammar stuff.
Yeah.
And then I had to hire a text setters.
Wow.
So, took a little process. But here was the thing. When I first got, when I got the structural editor, I think I had 150,000 words. And she'd been in the business for like 30 years or something. And she said, well, nobody's going to want to read a book that's 150,000 words. And I said to her, and she was also recovering from chronic pain, so it was hilarious to me that she said that. And I said, okay, first of all, every word in there I put in there consciously on purpose. And I said, second of all, anybody that's in chronic pain will read whatever they have to get better. And that's kind of where I stood. And she said, well, this is my professional judgment, And so I stood, I stood in my power and listened to her, and she stood in her power. And then we, and that was fine. We respected each other's space. And, she respected, well, it's my book, kind of thing. She's just giving me her professional opinion. And here's what happened. After a few more conversations, the book ended up being 175,000 words. Math. So, yeah, it was pretty funny when we got done. So it was great to bring another person in, especially like a structural editor, who she actually knew about chronic pain and how to heal from it from her angle. So it was very helpful to have that beautiful combination in a person to help me, because they offered this different perspective. And I kept also, the other piece was, instead of being married to the work that I did, I became married to the message that I was getting out to the reader. And there's a difference there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because you are writing for yourself. You are out to writing your journey so that you are capturing what works for you, but at the same time, you want to keep your audience in mind. So how are they going to receive this? Is it clear? Is it something they can follow? Is it helpful? You want all that in there as well. So you're kind of writing to two different audiences at the same time, right?
Yeah, and is it necessary?
Yeah, right.
And remember, I said in the chronic pain space, we have brain fog and confusion. So the material needs to be simple and clear and kind of, in chunks. So I even went to another woman named Lisa Menini, who works up in Detroit, the Detroit area. She's amazing. She had a whole system about different ways you could put a book together in order to help the reader. And so I put in, we put in chapter headers, right? We put in a chapter, that's a header. I put in subheaders and sub-subheaders so that some people read every word. I'm one of those people. When I read a book, I read every word. That's just the way I read. Some people kind of, they skim through the paragraph and read the first and last sentence. Some people just go through and read the headers and the subheaders. That's the way they do it.
Yeah.
So because she had pointed that out to me and I had done one of her weekend workshops, she's amazing. I structured the book with all four of those people in mind, different kinds of readers in mind. So it didn't matter what kind of reader picked up the book, they could still get the value out of the book.
Is your book meant to be read like some other books that are kind of like a one-time read and then put it on the shelf as a resource, or is it meant to be more of a ongoing conversation that I'm going to reread and have it kind of with me in my journey through chronic pain?
Oh, well, yeah, there's this using the tools. So what did she say about that? Oh, I've got this problem now. I've got a heck of a negative thinking problem. What did she say about it? And what about breath work? How does she, how does she do her, well, what about meditation? What does she say about that? All that kind of stuff. So there's exercises in the book, and there's, I've studied, I brought in ancestral clearing as a methodology, that's clearing imprints from the past that might be from our past or from the lineage, which is a whole nother thing. Oh, what did she say about that? I don't remember what she said, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of depends on who's, if you're a patient, a chronic pain sufferer, you're going to want this book.
Yeah.
And if you're a nurse or a doctor, or a therapist or somebody who's working with chronic pain, but you suffers, but you've never had it, this is a good book because it's got the voice of what's happening on the inside with the chronic.
That's a key element, I think, to what you said, is it's not like a textbook through research and schooling. It's personal experience. It's perspective that you have that you can share that doesn't show up on a chart. It doesn't show up in a textbook anywhere. This is a real life experience that I've had that I want to share with you, and that could actually help people understand better who haven't lived any of this, right?
Well, it was also based on all the voices I'd heard. Remember, I sat in front of thousands.
Yeah.
And I picked out the things we had in common. Now, science has things to say about that because there's been a lot of work done on what happens to the brain in that state. But that's from a textbook. This is what it looks like when you run into it. Kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What it sounds like when, this is how you're not going to hear that in a textbook. You're going to hear, oh, well, this happens in the brain and this goes to this and here's the pathway. And you're going to hear all that, which is great. But you're not going to, you're not going to hear this negative thinking habit sounds like this. Right.
Yeah.
And here's how to get, this is a cycle of suffering that a chronic pain sufferer goes through. These are the steps they take. This is the steps to get out of it. All that kind of stuff.
To be a great book then as well for a caregiver or someone who has someone in their life who is dealing with chronic pain. It's a great gift idea too, as far as giving them a tool that they can then use right away, put into place. Mm-hmm. It's great. Do you have other things that kind of go with the book in the future? Or like, I can just imagine you sharing your story, maybe in a group setting or on stage. Does the book open a door for you to carry your message further beyond the pages of the book?
Well, I have a website and I teach a course that's based on the book, a 12-part course that's based on the book through the Wellness Universe, which is a healing platform. And I taught a course called on trauma recovery called Healing Here Now, Mindfulness and Trauma Recovery, also through the Wellness Universe, a 12-part course. And I'm just about to launch an 18 video, each is 30 minutes long, called Foundations of Trauma Recovery. So why trauma recovery? So we gave a definition of chronic pain, and also, the medications I was on were addictive. So, and chronic pain can be addictive. So but before all that, this unresolved trauma in the system. So we have to get to the root of what's causing the chronic pain. Why is it Elizabeth healing? Remember I said they didn't ask that question. They just assumed I wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah. Dr. Peter asked why. He knew there was something under the hood there that nobody looked at, and I was probably trying to deny, and he was right.
Yeah.
So the trauma piece. So I've taken just an awful lot of in the 10 years since I was in that program, I've taken a lot of training in the kind of the science and the practical application of yoga and trauma-informed practices, other trauma-informed practices to help heal the body.
Okay.
And so that's what that Foundations of Trauma Recovery 18-module course is about.
Was Dr. Peter aware at all about your desire to write a book and your journey and all that? Did he have any concept of that?
He knew I was a writer because he helped me. I helped him write the exercises at the back of the book. He called me and said, "Hey, I'm struggling with this book." And I said, "Great, I'm happy to help." So he knew I was a writer. He passed away in 2016, mid 2016, and I think he knew. I think I told him I was working on a book. Oh, yeah. That's funny because I remember. Be like late 2016, 2017-ish in there. And I'm working on this book and I can feel my insecurity rising again, this old pattern of like, I'm not good enough, all that old trauma stuff. And I could feel it. And I would hear his voice, Elizabeth, get out of your head and into your heart, And, okay, I hear you.
I love it.
Interesting. So the ghost of Peter Prescott would drop in every time and make sure I stayed on track.
Yeah. What do you think he would think of your book if he got a copy on his desk? What do you think? What kind of feedback do you think he would have given you on your book, knowing him the way you do?
I think he would have said, "A good job. I'll be giving it away with my book." As a companion. I think he would have said that. He was planning on doing an outpatient chronic pain, people getting out of a drug treatment, doing an outpatient program on healing from chronic pain, right? People that were in treatment because of chronic pain to help them afterwards, because there's like the addictive behavior around the drug or the substance. But there's the behavior, and there's a lot of stuff that we bring to the table and can increase our chronic pain from our behaviors, the way we're coming at the world. So he had this program he was putting together, and he wanted me to come in and be a mentor and the yoga teacher. So we were already kind of set up to work together, and then he kind of got sick and passed pretty quickly. So.
Yeah. Sounds like he was a huge inspiration for you beyond him helping you through your journey, but just I get a sense of admiration for him and who he was. Anything extra you can tell us about him as a person? Because there's the doctor, there's the the official title and that kind of thing, but there's something special about him that every time I mention his name, you smile. So tell me more about him as a person.
Well, Peter was there was only one of Peter. They broke the mold and they made him. He was, I'm so sorry. My email's
okay.
through. I don't know. I closed the window and it's still coming through.
That's fine.
I'll tell you, when I first met him in the flesh, I talked to him on the phone a few times, but before I got into his program, but he said to me, he didn't even say doctor, I'm Peter Prescott. It's an honor to meet you. And I was shocked to hear that. I had to stop for a minute. I was struck, which is unusual for me, speechless, because I'd never heard a doctor say it's an honor to meet you. I was always the ego is so great, oftentimes in the medical field, that like it's an honor for me to be your doctor. Is kind of,
Yeah.
and I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah. It's backwards. Yeah.
And I was stunned. And anyway, so that was kind of how we started. And he was like that with everybody. And also, he was hilariously funny. And he knew he had a real talent because it would have been anybody could watch him work a room of chronic pain sufferers because, everybody's like, tense, and he knew, and everybody's got different kinds of trauma and responses that they're dealing with. And he knew. He was like a psychological surgeon. So he had psychiatry under his belt. And he had addiction recovery, and he was an addiction doctor, and he was a brain specialist. He had a lot of different medical degrees. And he was like a surgeon with his word scalpel, because he knew just where to gently put attention. I won't even say poke. I would say gently put attention on a person to help them open up from where they were closed. He knew how to do that, and everybody's got like different buttons and stuff. And it was astonishing to watch him do that.
Wow.
And I'm as guarded as anybody else at that time. And so he had his work cut out with me, but he knew how to, he knew how to get around all my armor. So he was, everybody loved Peter.
Yeah.
Everybody loved Peter. He was astonishing.
Yeah.
So
it's great. And yeah, I love that his legacy carries on too. Through your book, his book, the combination of the two, right? He's still helping people today. That's amazing.
And through his patients, his patients were, he was quite remarkable. So, and his sense of humor was, it's hard getting people really belly laughing in a room full of chronic pain sufferers. That takes talent. And he and John Newton, who work with him, John Newton's does ancestral clearing with the website healthbeyondbelief.com. Those two in a room, because he worked with Peter. They would get us just cracking up, which is very healing.
Yeah.
And they just knew how to kind of break down our they just knew how to get us, and it was very helpful. So, yeah.
It's amazing. Well, I think it's kind of important to remember and go back again that you're in the center of the United States, I think for a reason. I think that's where it all starts there, and it all kind of goes from where you are geographically, but what you're doing and what you're writing about, it all starts there and kind of spreads out from where you are. So I think you're in the right spot in the world to share your message and reach out to people way beyond some words on a piece of paper. There's something special about you and what you're sharing and your desire to help people. And that's what I really kind of want people to focus in on is you're here to not sell 1 million books, which we would love, but you're here to help people. And I think that's the main focus I get when I hear you talk.
Oh yeah. It's when you've been given the sentence of you will be in pain for the rest of your life, that's quite a rock to crawl out from under.
Right.
And I just don't want anyone to have to unnecessarily. You can heal from chronic pain. It's not a life sentence. That's my message.
Yeah. It's not your identity.
Well, that's a whole other part. Yes, it's not who you are. It's you're having an experience of it, but it's not who you are. And that's one of the problems with chronic pain is it's chronic pain steals our attention away from everything but it. And because it's so effective at doing that, and our mind is so affected by chronic pain, and the emotional center in the brain is so affected by it.
Yeah.
We can lose our identity to the chronic pain. We can actually think that we've become chronic pain and that's who we are.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's so important. Yeah.
Agree. So Elizabeth, before we go, I have one more question at the end, but your website, you talked about courses and things that are coming up to help people. We'd love to have a link that we can send everybody to. Where are you most active online and maybe social media? Where would you like a listener to come and find you, because I'm sure there's going to be people like, I need Elizabeth to come share with my group or be a part of my community somehow. Where do we go and how do we do that?
Sure, thank you. You can find me on my website, which is my name, Elizabeth, with a dash, Elizabeth-Kipp.com. So there's a little hyphen between my first and last name. Otherwise, if you do ElizabethKipp.com, you'll find the other Elizabeth, who's a web designer and a photographer. And she's amazing, but she's not me. So you put the hyphen in there. Okay. And you can find me all over social media. I'm like mostly on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Okay. That's great. So Elizabeth, for someone listening, it allows me to end off our time together. They're really struggling with the mental side. We talked about earlier about their chronic pain. They're going to get the book. They have the book. Any words of encouragement to someone really wrestling mentally with their diagnosis or what they've been told, and they're really living underneath the rock right now you talked about? Can you talk to that person right now? They're here with us right now. Mm-hmm. They came because of the title of the episode. They came because of your book and who you are. Mm-hmm. Just like Dr. Peter helped you so much, you are here now. What would you say to the person that's struggling or knows someone who is struggling? How can we help them right now, this week, to make things a little bit better?
Well, a couple things. One, you said the thing about the identity. I am not my pain. I'm having an experience of pain, but it's not who I am. That understanding separates us and is very healing right there. Another thing, which Peter said, which was one of the first things he said in his class when I went in there, which was so helpful. He said, "What are you doing to contribute to your pain?" Which when I heard that, I was insulted because I was like, dude, I'm not doing anything. The pain's doing it to me. So I was in total victim mode, which was, very interesting. That's where I was. But here's the thing. I realized that by asking the question that he asked, what are you doing to contribute to your pain? He just he empowered me because I suddenly saw, I actually have a role in my pain experience. I have some power here, where before I felt like I was a complete victim. So he, by asking that question, empowered me as a person to ask myself, is there something that I'm bringing to the table that's not helping here? And that's what's in the book. Yeah.
I love it. Elizabeth, it's so great to have you on here. And again, I'm so thankful and excited that we can share resources beyond the book, because we know it's Living the Next Chapter is the name of the podcast, right? So we're living out this book every day, and that's a great thing about what you've written, and that people then can also check in on all the different resources you have coming in the future as well. So keep sharing your message, Elizabeth. Keep helping people, and thank you for not just surviving, but now thriving and helping others in their journey through chronic pain. It's excellent to have you here.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. I've really enjoyed meeting you, and I'm so grateful for your platform.
It's amazing. Everyone go check out all the information in the show notes. All the links will be there to go to the correct Elizabeth Kipp, and make sure you go and support her as well. Buy the book, gift the book, leave a great review for our authors, letting people know how important this book is to you or your loved one, so that the next person coming online to buy the book or purchase it will see your words and realize that this book from Elizabeth is the one that's going to help them the most. So again, Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jumping here at the very end, I want to thank you for coming. We have listeners around the world, and I got to tell you, as a podcaster, it is so great to hear back from the people who listen to the show. Now, you are still here. The podcast's over. Like, we're sweeping up and putting the chairs away. You're still here. So, hi. I would love to talk to you. No, I really, really would. I would love to hear your voice. I would love to hear from you through email. You can do all that at livingthenextchapter.com. I say it fast because I love it. Living the Next Chapter. It's the name of the podcast. .com. How's that for easy? Right? Right. So come on over there and let's have a conversation. You can set up time in my calendar. You can, air quote here, book. Book time in my calendar. Book. Next chapter. Let's have a conversation. Thanks for being here. See you on the next one. Cheers.
Hey there, fellow parent. If you're anything like me, balancing screen time for our kids is a constant struggle. That's why I want to share a little secret with you, KidsPod. It's this amazing app I found that's packed with podcasts just for kids. Imagine stories, learning, and fun, all without the screen. It's been a game changer in our house, keeping my kids engaged and their imaginations running wild. And guess what? It's completely free. So download KidsPod today. Trust me, it's a decision you won't regret.